Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are so glad you're here with us today.
It is great to be back.
Today, we are doing something that feels a little bit like, well, like explaining a magic trick
Right.
while the magician is still standing right there performing it.
Hmm.
We are looking under the hood of your own brain. And specifically, we're looking at why your reality, the thing you think is happening right now, the chair you're sitting in, the commute you're on, is actually a script.
A script your brain is just frantically writing in real time.
Exactly.
It's a bit like The Truman Show, isn't it?
It really is.
Except the director isn't some guy up in the sky. The director is a specific, very, very busy part of your own mind.
Right. And, before we get into the heavy science, the neurons and the psychology, I want to start with a question for you, for everyone listening right now.
Okay.
I want you to think about the last time you experienced a genuine, jaw-dropping coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're on vacation. You've flown halfway across the world. Maybe you're in a small coffee shop in Tokyo or some tiny village in Italy.
Yeah.
You turn a corner, and you bump into a friend from high school.
Oh, the classic small world moment. It's happened to me.
It's happened to all of us.
Yeah.
Right? And in that moment, your brain it explodes. It feels miraculous.
It feels like the universe is playing a prank on you.
Yes. The odds are 1 in a billion. You text everyone you know. You put it on social media.
Mm-hmm.
But here is the scenario I want to pose to you, and this is where it gets weird.
Okay.
Imagine that happens. And then 2 weeks later, you're in a completely different city, maybe a movie theater in London, and bam, you run into that same friend again.
Okay, now statistically, if we are running the numbers, that is almost impossible.
Impossible.
The odds are astronomical. It just shouldn't happen.
Logically, yes. Your rational brain says, this is crazy. But emotionally, the research suggests something really, really strange happens the second time.
It doesn't feel like a miracle anymore.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It feels normal.
It's a fascinating and, frankly, a slightly unsettling phenomenon.
It is.
We adapt to the extraordinary with terrifying speed.
And that adaptation, that subtle click in your brain that says, oh yeah, Dave from high school, he just shows up everywhere now. That is what we are unpacking today. We are looking at a stack of research centered on norms, surprises, and causes. And the star of the show is our old friend, System 1.
That's right. And for the rigorous listeners who have been with us through previous dives, you know the drill. But for anyone new, or just for clarity, let's reestablish exactly what we mean when we say System 1.
Good idea.
Because it's a term that gets thrown around a lot in behavioral economics, and it can be a little misleading.
Right, because we aren't talking about a literal guy in your head pulling levers.
No, not at all. Though honestly, it helps to think of it that way sometimes.
It does.
System 1 it's a metaphor. It's our name for the fast, automatic, intuitive mode of thinking.
The gut reaction.
Exactly. It's the part of your brain that operates automatically and quickly with little or no effort and certainly no sense of voluntary control.
It's the part of you that knows 2 + 2 = 4 before you even decide to do the math.
Right. Or the part that makes you swerve the car when a deer jumps out. You don't think, you just do. That's System 1.
And I like to think of it as the screenwriter of our lives. It's constantly writing the script of what's happening around us, and more importantly, what should be happening.
The should. That's the key.
It is. It's not a cold, hard calculator. It's a storyteller. And today's mission, our deep dive, is to figure out how this storyteller maintains a sense of normality, how it handles surprises, and this is the part that really blew my mind, why it is absolutely addicted to finding causes.
Even when there aren't any.
Especially when there aren't any.
Yeah, the source material describes it as a remarkably powerful computer, but we need to be careful with that word computer.
Why is that?
It's not a computer that runs on binary code or strict logic like your laptop. It runs on associations. It builds a model of your personal world by linking ideas together. Coffee gets linked to morning, bed gets linked to sleep. And that model, that web of connections, determines everything about how you interpret the present and what you expect from the future.
So let's unpack this world model, because that sounds so grand and philosophical, the world model, like something out of a sci-fi novel.
Right.
But it's actually happening in really small, mundane ways every single second, isn't it?
Precisely. It's not a grand theory of the cosmos. It's a working model of your specific life, your commute, your family, your job. The main function of System 1 in this context is to maintain and update a model of what is normal for you.
Okay, and it builds this model how?
It's constructed by associations that link ideas, circumstances, events, actions, and outcomes that occur together with some kind of regularity.
So let's ground this. If I wake up in my house and I smell coffee, my brain doesn't freak out.
No.
It links that smell to morning, to kitchen, to my spouse is awake. It all fits.
Correct. And those links, those are physically wired together in your neural pathways. They've been reinforced over years. Smell of coffee and morning are a strong connection.
And because those links are strong, I'm not surprised.
You're not surprised at all. Your system 1 has predicted it, or at least it is prepared for it. And this brings us to a really critical distinction the research makes between two types of expectations.
Active and passive.
Active and passive. This explains so much.
I love this distinction because it clarifies how we can possibly move through the world without losing our minds. So let's start with active expectation.
Okay.
This is when you are literally waiting for something specific to happen.
Right. This is conscious. This involves system 2, your slow, deliberate, analytical thinking.
So the example is you're waiting for your child to get off the school bus.
Uh-huh. You're looking at the road, you're checking your watch. You have an active prediction. The bus will appear around the corner in about 3 minutes.
And if the bus doesn't appear, or if a dump truck appears instead, you are surprised.
You're very surprised.
You might even panic a little bit because an active prediction failed. You had a specific slot in your future that didn't get filled.
Exactly. That's a violation of an active forecast. But here's the thing, and this is so important. We can't actively predict everything.
No way.
It would take way too much energy. Imagine if you had to actively predict every leaf blowing in the wind, every car passing by, every sound of the refrigerator humming.
Your brain would overheat in 10 minutes. You wouldn't be able to function at all.
Not at all. So the vast majority of our mental life is governed by passive expectations.
Which is like the background operating system running on your phone.
That's a great analogy.
You aren't looking at it, but it's managing everything to make sure the phone actually works. It's handling the battery, the Wi-Fi.
And that's exactly what passive expectations are. They're events that you aren't waiting for, but you aren't surprised if they happen.
Okay, give me an example.
You don't walk into a room actively expecting to see a chair in the corner. You aren't, chanting chair, chair, chair in your head as you open the door.
No, I am not.
But if you see one, you aren't shocked. It's normal in that context. It fits. It flows with the model of what's in a room.
But, and here's where the model gets tested. If I walked into my living room and saw a giraffe standing in the corner,
You would be shocked. You would stop dead in your tracks.
I would be terrified, first of all.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Because even though you didn't actively predict no giraffe, you never consciously thought, I bet there won't be a giraffe in here. The presence of a giraffe violates the passive norms of what belongs in a living room.
It's not on the list.
It's not on the list. Your system 1 has this massive silent list of things that are allowed to be in a living room. Sofas, lamps, books.
Rugs, TVs.
Giraffes are not on the list.
So system 1 is basically this massive pattern recognition machine that's running in the background, constantly checking, is this normal, is this normal, is this normal?
All the time. And when the answer is yes, you feel what psychologists call cognitive ease.
Cognitive ease.
You don't have to think. You can daydream. You can listen to this deep dive. But when something violates that norm, when the giraffe shows up,
Red alert.
red alert. System 1 immediately wakes up. System 2, the conscious, slow thinker, to figure out what on earth is going on. It's essentially saying, hey, boss, there's a giraffe. I don't have a script for this. You need to deal with it.
It's the brain's alarm system.
That's it. And the fascinating thing is how incredibly flexible this system is, because normal changes.
Right.
If you moved to a safari park and worked in the veterinary clinic, eventually seeing a giraffe might become part of your passive expectations. You'd walk by one and not even blink.
And here is where it gets really, really interesting. This goes right back to our intro with our friend Dave from high school.
Yeah.
System 1 is, well, it's lazy.
It's incredibly lazy. It hates being surprised.
Why does it hate being surprised?
Because being surprised takes energy. It forces System 2 to get involved, and System 2 is a huge energy hog. So System 1 will do anything to avoid that.
And what it does is it updates its file on normality incredibly fast.
Almost instantly, it can rewrite the rules of the world just to stop being surprised.
Which brings us to the John story. This is a case study from the source material that it perfectly illustrates how quickly we normalize the weird.
It's a fantastic story.
So let's tell this story properly because the details really matter to understand the psychological effect. The researcher describes being on vacation with his wife. They are at a resort on the Great Barrier Reef in Australia.
And we need to emphasize the isolation here. This isn't a crowded Marriott in Times Square or a busy street in Paris.
Oh, hell.
It's a small island. There are only 40 guest rooms. It is thousands and thousands of miles away from their home. It is effectively a different planet compared to their daily life.
So basically the last place on Earth you'd expect to run into someone you know.
The probability is near zero.
You're there to get away from people you know.
Exactly. So they go to dinner, they walk into the restaurant, they're probably relaxed, thinking about the reef, and surprise, they meet an acquaintance, a psychologist named John.
Which is a huge, huge coincidence. I mean, the odds of that specific person being in that specific room at that specific time, it's astronomical.
And they react accordingly. They greet each other. They are shocked. They talk about how crazy it is. What are the chances? I can't believe you're here.
The whole routine.
The whole routine. John leaves the next day. The vacation continues. But then the story continues. About 2 weeks later, the researcher and his wife are in London.
Completely different context. Urban, crowded, gray, thousands of miles away from sunny Australia.
They go to a theater. They take their seats. The lights go down. A latecomer enters and sits right next to them. Intermission comes. The lights go up. They turn to look at their neighbor. And who is sitting right there?
John. Again.
John again.
Okay, now, if that were me, I am calling the police. I'm thinking this guy's following me. There's something wrong here.
And logically, you should be. Statistically speaking, meeting John in London, right next to them in a theater, immediately after Australia, is so incredibly unlikely.
It's more unlikely than the first meeting.
Way more unlikely because the combination of the two events is statistically infinitesimal. But here is the twist, and this is the absolute key to understanding System 1.
What was their reaction?
The researcher noted that they were distinctly less surprised the second time than they were the first time.
That is so counterintuitive. It makes no sense. If I see the same random guy in Australia and then in London 2 weeks later, I feel like I should be freaking out. I'd think I was in the Truman Show. Why weren't they more surprised?
Because System 1 had already updated the John file.
The John file? What is that?
Well, think about how memory works in System 1. It works by association. Before the trip, John was just a guy I know from work, maybe psychologist, that's it.
Simple file.
A very simple file. But after the first meeting in Australia, John was no longer just an acquaintance. He had become in the associative network of the brain.
Who had he become?
He'd become the psychologist who shows up when we travel.
That is hilarious. So the brain just creates a new rule. Oh, John. Yeah, he's the travel guy. He pops up.
Exactly that. It's a new category. Normality doesn't require high probability. This is so important. It just requires a precedent.
One precedent is enough.
For System 1, it's plenty. It strives for a coherent worldview above all else. Meeting John once was an anomaly, a surprise. Meeting him twice.
That's a pattern.
That's a pattern, and System 1 loves patterns. It made the unlikely seem normal to preserve the coherence of the narrative. It says, I see. In this world, John appears in random places. Got it. No need to be surprised anymore.
So if they had met any other acquaintance in that London theater, say a woman named Sarah who they hadn't seen in Australia, they would have been shocked.
Significantly more shocked, even though statistically, meeting Sarah is just as unlikely as meeting John. But John was now primed.
He was expecting.
In a weird way, yes. He was retrieved from memory and linked to the context of traveling. So when he appeared, System 1 said, yes, John, he does this. And it went back to sleep.
It's terrifyingly efficient, isn't it? We just rewrite reality to make it fit. I guess this is my life now.
It is.
It reminds me of how quickly we adapted to things like wearing masks a few years ago or doing everything by video call. It took about 2 weeks, and then it was normal.
That's a great real-world example. The brain is desperate to stop processing surprise because surprise is exhausting, so it just lowers the bar for what it considers normal.
And the source material gives another example that I think is even more relatable because it involves driving.
The burning car phenomenon.
Yes.
And this demonstrates how a passive expectation can turn into an active one almost instantly.
So the story goes, the author is driving from New York to Princeton, a drive they do every single week. It's a commute, routine, boring.
The definition of normal.
Exactly. Then they see a car on fire on the side of the road.
Which is a highly unusual event. You don't see burning cars every day. It's a spectacle. You slow down, you look, you wonder what happened. It burns into your memory, pun intended.
Right. It breaks the norm. The passive expectation of safe, boring highway is completely shattered. But then, the very next Sunday,
Same drive.
Same drive, same route, they reach the same spot, and bam, another car on fire.
And again, the reaction was not increased shock. It was actually decreased surprise.
How is that possible?
The location on the highway had now been tagged by System 1. It was no longer just mile marker 78. It became the place where cars catch fire.
The place where cars catch fire, after one time. That seems remarkably premature. That's like eating one bad apple and deciding all fruit is poison.
It sounds absurd to our logical system too, but for System 1, that's all it needs. The first incident sowed the seed. The second incident confirmed the pattern. It's a two-point trend line.
And the interesting implication here, and I think we've all felt this, is that for months or even years afterward, every time they drove past that spot,
They actively expected to see a burning car.
they were looking for it.
They were prepared for it. The passive expectation, the road is clear, had been totally overwritten by a specific active expectation of disaster.
This explains so much about anxiety, doesn't it? If you have one bad experience in an elevator or one bad experience with a dog, your System 1 instantly tags elevators or dogs as dangerous.
Absolutely. And you have to remember, it's a survival mechanism.
How so?
Evolutionarily speaking, it is much, much better to be over-prepared for danger than under-prepared. If you see a lion at the river once and you decide the river is where the lions are, you survive.
Okay.
If you wait for statistical significance, well, I've only seen one lion, I need more data before I conclude this river is dangerous, you get eaten.
So System 1 is paranoid for a very good reason.
Correct. But in the modern world, where the dangers are less,
Right.
liony,
Mm.
it leads to these false patterns.
Right. If you have one bad experience at a restaurant, say the waiter is rude, you go back next time expecting rudeness.
You are primed for it. You're looking for it. And because you're looking for it, you'll probably find it, or at least interpret a neutral interaction as a negative one.
This leads us right into norm theory. This is a concept developed by Dale Miller and Daniel Kahneman.
Right.
It's all about how we interpret anomalies. And they use this great example of a soup bowl in a restaurant.
It's a wonderful thought experiment because it shows how we rewrite history to explain the present. So imagine you are sitting in a restaurant just people watching. You see a guest at the next table take a sip of soup and wince, like they're in pain.
Okay, so immediately my brain goes, what's wrong? I'm curious. Did they break their tongue? Is the soup too hot? Is it disgusting?
Right. It's a surprise. It's an anomaly. Now, your System 1 is on high alert. It needs to explain this wince. It hates the mystery.
You need the cause.
It needs a cause. But here's the trick. How we interpret what happens next depends entirely on this first event. We use the future to explain the past.
Okay, so let's play out a scenario. Let's say the waiter comes over and gently touches the guest on the shoulder, and the guest jumps, like really startles.
Your brain instantly links the two events, the wincing at the soup and the jumping at the touch. And the narrative becomes, this guest is a jumpy, tense person. You normalize the soup wince by attributing it to the person's personality.
So you think, oh, he just reacts strongly to everything. The soup is probably fine.
Exactly. The story is coherent, case closed. But let's replay the tape.
Okay, same start. Man winces at soup, but this time the waiter doesn't touch him. Instead, another person at the same table takes a sip of the same soup and also winces.
Then your brain links the two winces. The narrative immediately becomes...
The soup is bad.
The soup is bad. Maybe it's too hot. Maybe it's horribly salty. You normalize the first event by blaming the soup.
It's like we are constantly looking for a hook to hang the explanation on. We can't just let the first wince be a random mystery. We have to solve it.
We strive for a coherent pattern instantly. The source material says, abnormal events recruit original memories to make sense of the present. We retroactively make sense of the first surprise based on what the second surprise is.
We are just desperate for the world to make sense. We don't like hanging chads at our mental ballots. We need a clear winner.
We do. And when we talk about this desperation for coherence, we absolutely have to talk about the illusions it creates.
Oh, yes.
Because System 1 is so good at making things fit, it sometimes makes things fit that well that simply don't.
This is where we get to the famous Moses illusion.
This is a classic psychology trick, and I think we should try this on the listener right now.
Yes, let's do it. So if you're driving, please don't crash, but pay close attention. I'm going to ask you a simple question. Don't overthink it. Just answer it in your head as fast as you can.
Ready?
Here's the question. How many animals of each kind did Moses take into the ark? Got your answer. I'll bet I know what it is.
If you said two or two of each kind, you are in the vast majority of people. You are also completely wrong.
Because it wasn't Moses, it was Noah.
Exactly. Moses took precisely 0 animals into the ark. Noah did. Moses was the burning bush guy, the parting of the sea guy.
Right.
But the Moses illusion is so powerful that most people, even people who know the Bible well, even theology students, often don't even spot the error.
They just gloss right over it.
They just hear animals, ark, and a biblical name, and System 1 says, yep, that checks out. Looks good to me.
But why does that happen? I mean, I know the difference between Moses and Noah. My brain has that information. Why doesn't it stop and say, wait a minute, wrong guy?
It's all about associative coherence.
What's that?
The name Moses is heavily linked in your neural network to the biblical context. It's in the same cloud of ideas as Ark and Flood and God and Old Testament.
So it feels right.
It feels right. Plus, Moses and Noah share some similar vowel sounds, similar syllable structures. They feel phonetically similar.
So System 1 does a quick scan. It sees biblical context, check. It sees sound of name, kind of similar, check. And it gives the green light.
That's it. It doesn't bother to check the factual accuracy because the feeling of the sentence is correct. The vibe is right.
So cognitive ease is maintained.
Exactly. And System 2 is lazy. If System 1 says it looks good, System 2 doesn't double-check the paperwork. It just stamps it approved.
Now to prove this, let's swap the name.
Right. Imagine if I asked you, how many animals of each kind did George W. Bush take into the ark?
Okay, that just sounds like a bad joke. It's jarring. It stops you completely cold.
It does. Because there is 0 associative link between George W. Bush and the ark. The illusion fails immediately.
There's no cognitive ease there.
None. System 1 hits a brick wall, slams on the brakes, and screams, "This makes no sense. Who is George W. Bush in this context?"
It really highlights how much of our understanding of the world is based on these loose associations rather than strict hard facts. We're surfing on the vibe of the information rather than the details.
We absolutely are. And speaking of hitting the brakes, the speed at which our brains do this it's terrifying.
Yeah.
The source material mentions a study where they tracked brain waves, specifically electrical potentials, while people read sentences. They gave them this sentence: "The Earth revolves around the trouble every year."
The Earth revolves around the trouble every year.
Yeah.
It's a nonsensical sentence. Trouble doesn't fit there. It should be sun.
Right. But what's incredible is that neuroscientists can track the brain's response to this. They found that a distinct pattern of brain activity, a spike called the N400, starts within 0.2 of a second of hearing the odd word trouble.
0.2 of a second. That's instantaneous. That's faster than a heartbeat.
It's faster than you can consciously blink. Your brain was expecting sun, it was preloaded, it got trouble, and before you even knew you were confused, your brain had already flagged the error.
So it's not like we hear the sentence, process it, and then think, that's weird. The weirdness signal is the very first thing that happens.
It is. It shows that System 1 is constantly predicting the next word, the next event. It's essentially auto-completing reality before it happens.
And it's not just for logic errors like that. It's for social norms, too. There was that example about the voices.
Yes, this is where it gets funny and also reveals a bit about our built-in biases. They played a recording of a male voice saying, "I believe I am pregnant because I feel sick every morning."
And the brain lights up immediately. The N400 spike.
Instantly. The brain detects a fundamental clash between the voice, male, and the meaning, pregnant.
Okay, well, men can't get pregnant, so that's a biological fact check that makes sense.
True, but they also played another sentence. This time it was an upper-class, aristocratic English voice, think the Queen or a posh butler from Downton Abbey, saying, "I have a large tattoo on my back."
And that triggered the error signal, too.
It did.
Because aristocrats don't have back tattoos. Is that a rule?
According to the stereotypes stored in System 1, apparently not. The brain detects the incongruity between the voice, the class marker, and the content, the tattoo. And it does this in milliseconds.
Wow.
It shows that our stereotypes about class, gender, race, you name it, are not just thoughts we have. They are part of the automatic filter through which we process language and reality.
That is wild.
Yeah.
It means we are walking around with this massive invisible database of world knowledge biology, class structures, voice recognition, geography, and we are cross-referencing everything we hear against this database in real time all the time.
And we have to. We absolutely have to. If we didn't, communication would be impossible.
How is it?
We'd have to explain every single concept from scratch. This brings us to the concept of shared norms.
Right. If I say the word table, You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I assume a level surface. I assume 4 legs, certainly fewer than, say, 25 legs.
Right.
If you meant a table with 25 legs, you would have to specify that because it's an exception.
Because the norm for a table is 4 legs. If I don't specify, your system 1 just fills in the default.
Exactly. Communication relies on these shared, unstated norms. We don't describe every single detail because we assume the other person's system 1 has the same prototypes as ours.
But this gets really fun when we deal with relative sizes and scales.
Oh, the mouse and the elephant. This was a complete mind bender for me.
It's great. Let's do another visualization. I want the listener to picture this sentence. The large mouse climbed over the trunk of the very small elephant.
The large mouse climbed over the trunk of the very small elephant.
Okay. Now visualize that for a moment. What do you see in your mind's eye?
Well, I see a mouse. It's big for a mouse, maybe the size of a rat or a shoe.
A big rat, yeah.
And I see an elephant, but it's tiny for an elephant, maybe the size of a sofa or a large dog.
Precisely. You likely imagine a mouse smaller than a shoe and an elephant larger than a sofa.
So wait, did anyone out there imagine the mouse being physically larger than the elephant? Like a Godzilla mouse next to a teacup elephant?
Almost certainly not. And that is the key point here. Our norms for size are not absolute. They are relative to the category.
Ah.
When we hear large mouse, we scale it against our internal model of a typical mouse. When we hear small elephant, we scale it against our internal model of a typical elephant. We do not strip away the category.
So system 1 is smart enough to know that the adjective large acts differently for a mouse than it does for, say, a building or a planet.
Instantly. It stores norms for categories that include not just the typical sizes, but also the range of plausible variability.
Range of what's possible.
Yes. It knows that an elephant can be small for an elephant, but it's still going to be huge compared to a mouse. This computation happens automatically. You didn't have to stop and do the math, you just saw it.
It's amazing how much heavy lifting System 1 does just to let us read a simple sentence. It's constantly referencing these invisible scales and rules.
It is. But this automatic processing, this storytelling, has a dark side, or at least a risky side.
A very risky side.
And that is our obsession with causality.
The need to find a cause. This is one of the most powerful drives in the human mind. We cannot stand unexplained events. We hate them.
Let's look at the Fred example. This shows how we just invent stories out of thin air. Here are the facts. Fred's parents arrived late. The caterers were expected soon. Fred was angry.
Okay, 3 short separate sentences. Why was Fred angry?
Well, obviously because his parents were late. Anyone would say that.
Are you sure? The text didn't say that. It just listed 3 facts. Parents late, caterers expected, Fred angry. It never said Fred was angry because his parents were late.
But come on, it's implied. It's the only thing that makes sense.
Is it maybe Fred is angry because the caterers are coming and he hasn't showered yet? Maybe he's angry because he hates caterers. Maybe he just stepped on a Lego 5 seconds before.
Okay, but my brain, and probably everyone's brain, jumps straight to the parents.
Of course it did, because your System 1 instantly built a causal link. Anger is very often caused by lateness, so you bridged the gap.
I filled it in.
You did. You didn't link the anger to the caterers being expected soon, because that doesn't fit a standard causal script. It's not a common story.
So I created a story that wasn't actually in the text. I became the writer.
You constructed a coherent story to make sense of the fragmented information. System 1 automatically searches for a cause and effect relationship. And System 2, your conscious self, usually just accepts the draft that System 1 hands it.
It's like System 1 is the writer in the writer's room pitching an idea. Hey, let's make a mad at the parents. And System 2 is the lazy producer who's on their phone and just says, yeah, sure, sounds good, print it.
That is a very, very apt metaphor. And this storytelling instinct is verified by experiments. There was a study involving a story about a woman named Jane.
Okay.
The story was, after spending a day exploring beautiful sights in the crowded streets of New York, Jane discovered that her wallet was missing.
Okay. Jane lost her wallet. Classic New York story. Happens all the time.
Later, the researchers gave the participants a recall test. They asked them which words were in the sentence. And here's the kicker.
What was it?
The word pickpocket was more strongly associated with the story than the word sights, even though sights was actually in the sentence and pickpocket was not.
Oh. So people remembered a word that wasn't even there.
They remembered the explanation they generated. They remembered the cause.
So their brain went, New York plus crowds plus missing wallet equals pickpocket.
And the associative machine filled in that blank so seamlessly that the inference became indistinguishable from the actual memory.
That is actually kind of scary for things like eyewitness testimony, isn't it?
It's terrifying.
We remember the story we told ourselves, not necessarily what we actually saw.
Absolutely. It shows that we prioritize coherence over accuracy. We want the world to make sense. If a wallet is gone, there must be a thief. We hate the idea that it just fell out of her bag.
We hate randomness.
We despise it.
And this need for coherence leads us to perhaps the most dangerous area of all, explaining the news.
Ah, yes. The daily ritual of financial news.
This section on the Bloomberg headlines is my favorite part of this deep dive because it exposes so much of the absolute nonsense we see every day.
It really does. This comes from Nassim Taleb's fantastic book, The Black Swan, which Kahneman cites. It recounts the day Saddam Hussein was captured in Iraq.
A massive global event. Huge news.
Huge news. So naturally, the markets are going to react. People want to know what this means for the economy, for their investments.
All right, so what happened?
In the morning, bond prices rose. Investors were buying U.S. Treasuries, which are seen as a safe haven. So the Bloomberg News Service flashed a headline.
And the headline was,
U.S. Treasuries rise. Hussein capture may not curb terrorism.
okay, let's analyze that. The capture is good news, but the market is buying safe assets, which is what you do when you're scared. So the journalist invents a reason.
A story.
A story. The market is worried that terrorism will continue, so they are fleeing to safety. It's a coherent story. It makes sense.
It feels right. It explains the facts on the ground. But then, just half an hour later, bond prices fell. The market swung the other way.
Okay, so now the facts of the market have changed. The prices are down. The previous story doesn't work anymore.
It's obsolete. So Bloomberg, needing to explain this new reality, released a new headline.
And what did it say?
U.S. Treasuries fall. Hussein capture boosts allure of risky assets.
Wait a second, just hold on.
Do you see it?
They use the exact same event, the capture of Saddam Hussein, to explain two completely opposite outcomes.
Exactly.
First it was people are scared because of Hussein. Now it's people are confident because of Hussein.
Headline 1. Hussein is captured, so buy bonds. Headline 2. Hussein is captured, so sell bonds. The event didn't change. The market simply fluctuated, as markets do. But we cannot accept random fluctuation as an explanation. System 1 demands a cause.
The market went down because.
Yeah.
The market went up because. We can't just say the market went down because more people sold than bought. That's not a story. It's not satisfying.
A statement that can explain two contradictory outcomes explains nothing at all. It's hollow, it's intellectual vaporware, but it feels so satisfying. It satisfies our need for coherence. A large event like the capture of a dictator must have consequences. So System 1 grabs the biggest, most obvious event available and glues it to whatever the market is doing, regardless of logic.
It's just rationalization after the fact. It's creative writing posing as financial analysis.
It is, and we consume it every single day. We listen to pundits explain why the stock market moved, why an election went a certain way, why a sports team lost. And so often, they're just retrofitting a causal story onto what is essentially random noise.
So does this mean we are just hardwired to see causes even where they don't exist? Like, is this a biological thing we can't escape?
It appears to be. I mean, it goes very, very deep. The research dives into the work of a Belgian psychologist from the 1940s named Albert Michaud.
Okay.
And he challenged the long-held philosophical idea that we learn causality from repeated observation. He argued that we see it.
We see it, like we see the color red.
Exactly like we see color. He created these very simple animations. Imagine a black square moving across a screen. It hits another square. The second square immediately starts moving away.
Okay, so square A hits square B. It's simple physics, like billiard balls.
Right, but when you watch it, you don't describe it by saying, object A stopped at coordinate X, and then object B started moving from coordinate X. That would be the factual geometric description.
No, I wouldn't say that. I'd say the first square hit the second one. Or pushed it.
Or launched it.
Yeah.
You see the force. You see the impact. You perceive the causality.
Yeah, it's a collision. I can almost feel the thud in my mind.
But it's just drawings on a screen. There is no physical force. There is no thud, no impact. Yet the illusion of causality is so overwhelming that even 6-month-old infants react to it.
6 months old.
Yes. If you mess with the timing, if you add a tiny delay between the touch and the move, the illusion breaks. But when it's instant, we perceive causality directly. It's a product of System 1.
So we don't deduce it, we perceive it. It's a basic function of our visual system.
Exactly, and it gets even more complex and interesting when we add intention to the mix.
Yeah.
This leads to the Heider and Simmel experiment.
Oh, this is the movie with the triangles.
Oh,
I love this.
it's one of the most famous films in the history of psychology. From 1944, Fritz Heider and Marianne Simmel. It's a short animation, less than 2 minutes long.
And it just features a large triangle, a small triangle, and a circle.
That's it. And they're moving around a rectangle that has an opening, which looks like a door to a house.
Just geometric shapes. No faces, no words, no music. A big triangle, a little triangle, a circle.
Just shapes, but when people watch it, they don't see shapes. What do they see?
They see a movie. They see a drama. The big triangle is a bully. It's aggressive. It's mean. It chases the others.
And the small triangle and the circle?
They're friends. They're terrified. They're trying to escape.
People see the big triangle attacking. They see the circle hiding in the house. They see the small triangle bravely fighting back and then joining forces with the circle to defeat the bully.
And at the end, when they escape and shut the door, the big triangle gets mad.
Yes, there is an explosive finale where the big triangle breaks the house in anger. The perception of intention and emotion is irresistible. We assign personality traits to triangles. That triangle is mean. That circle is brave.
It's wild because, again, these are just shapes. They have no brains, no hearts, no intentions. But we can't help but see them as agents with goals.
The only people who generally do not experience this effect, who just describe it as shapes moving, are individuals with autism.
Really?
For almost everyone else, the mind is absolutely eager to identify agents. We are born prepared to make intentional attributions. Infants under 1 year old can identify bullies and victims in these abstract scenarios.
So we are just wired from birth to find the bad guy and the hero, even if we were literally looking at a math problem.
We are, and this leads us to a very profound connection that the source material makes regarding, of all things, religion.
Yes, the Paul Bloom article. This took the conversation to a whole new level for me. I did not expect a book on behavioral economics to go on and explain the origin of religion.
It's a fascinating leap. Paul Bloom, writing in The Atlantic, suggested that this fundamental separation in our minds of physical causality, Michet's bumping squares, and intentional causality, Heider's bullying triangles, explains why religious belief is so natural and universal.
Okay, how so? How do moving squares and angry triangles lead to God?
Well, think about how you perceive your own actions. When you decide to pick up a salt shaker, you don't think about the neurons firing in your motor cortex or the muscles contracting in your arm. That's the physical causality.
No, I just think I want salt.
Exactly. You experience it as a decision made by you, a disembodied self, a mind that is giving orders to your body.
My mind made my body move. I am inside this machine driving it.
Precisely. We naturally perceive the world of objects, of soulless bodies, as separate from the world of minds, of what you might call bodiless souls.
So the idea of a soul, a mind that can exist without a body, isn't a huge leap for us. It's kind of how we already think about ourselves every day.
Correct. We are natural dualists. And conversely, the idea of a body without a mind, a corpse, an object, is also easy for us to grasp. This makes the two central pillars of many religions, an immaterial divinity, a god, and an immortal soul, very easy for System 1 to accept.
Because we are already running two different software programs for causality in our heads, one for stuff and one for minds.
And Bloom argues these concepts were likely shaped separately by powerful evolutionary forces. We are built to see God or spirits or intentions in the world because we are built to see intention as separate from physics.
That is deep. It really shows how our underlying biology can dictate our philosophy. We see a ghost in the machine because we feel like a ghost in our own machine.
It does, and it brings us right back to the central conflict of the book, which is statistical thinking versus causal thinking.
Right. System 1 is a causal thinker. It loves a story. It loves a why. It wants to know who the hero is and who the villain is.
But it is not a statistical thinker. It is terrible at it. Statistics deals with categories, ensembles, probabilities. It deals with randomness.
And System 1 hates randomness.
It despises randomness. It wants to know why this specific thing happened to this specific person.
It wants to know why Fred is angry, not what percentage of parents are late on average. It wants to know why the market crashed today, not what the standard deviation of daily variance is over 10 years.
Exactly. And this is why we struggle so much with modern data, with science. We try to apply story logic to statistical problems. We see a cluster of cancer cases in a town and we say, something must be causing this. Is it the water? Is it the power lines?
When in reality,
Statistically, random clusters are expected to happen occasionally just by pure chance. But that's not a satisfying
You
story.
can't accept it's just random. That's not a satisfying ending to the movie. There's no villain to blame.
And that is why we use metaphors like System 1 and System 2 in the first place. The source material admits this quite openly. System 1 isn't a little man inside your head. It's not an agent.
Wait, you mean there isn't actually a guy named System 1 pulling levers in my skull? You're breaking my heart.
I'm sorry to say no, it's a fiction. It's a useful metaphor for a vastly complex pattern of neural links and spreading activation in your brain.
So why use the metaphor?
Because describing it as an agent, as a character with traits like lazy and preferences like hates surprises, makes it much easier for our story-loving brains to understand.
Because of mental economy. We're using a story to understand the storyteller.
Yes, it fits our natural desire to assign traits and intentions, just like we did with Heider's triangles. It is much easier to say System 1 is impulsive than to try and explain the intricate neurobiology of associative activation.
So even the book Thinking Fast and Slow is using our own bias for storytelling to help us understand our bias for storytelling. That's really
Ooh,
meta.
that is the beautiful irony of it, isn't it? It uses the language of agents to explain why we see agents everywhere we look.
So where does this leave us? We've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from the John coincidence to the burning car on the highway to the Moses illusion to the bullying triangles.
We've seen that we are, at our core, machines built to normalize the strange. We adapt to new realities almost instantly. A passive expectation becomes an active one after just 2 instances.
And we prioritize coherence over accuracy. We'd rather have a story that makes sense, like a pickpocket in New York, than a messy, unexplained fragment that is actually true, like a wallet just falling out of a bag.
And we project intention onto everything. The stock market, the weather, simple geometric shapes.
We live in a world that is much more random than we admit, but our brains are constantly smoothing out the edges, connecting the dots, and writing a script that makes us feel like we understand what is happening.
When really we're just making ourselves feel better.
So here's my final thought for you, the listener. The next time you open a news app and you see a headline explaining exactly why something happened, why the market crashed, why a politician said that thing, why some new trend is starting, I want you to pause and ask yourself, is this a fact? Or is this just my System 1 and the journalist System 1 demanding a coherent story?
And maybe, just maybe, try to catch yourself the next time you normalize something weird in your own life. If you see that burning car twice, remind yourself. It might just be a coincidence. You don't need to rewrite your entire map of the world.
Although, let's be honest, you probably will. You can't turn off the storyteller.
No, you can't. But you can learn to smile at it. You can acknowledge what it's doing.
I like that. Smile at the storyteller. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
This is a pleasure.
Catch you on the next one. Keep thinking.